I found out from my kids, they kept trying to get me up really early in the morning, texting and calling, and I thought it was fake news.
I got to say it was a real gut punch to me hearing the news about Ozzy. Not because it was surprising that he reached his late 70s and then had died, because he challenged his body for many decades in a way that would have finished lesser mortals off. But it was the fact that it came just 2 weeks after this extraordinary farewell show back in Birmingham where it all began for him. The poignancy of Ozzy dying just 2 weeks later was very striking, I thought. What were your thoughts when you heard the love and admiration, not just of the industry, but the fans is unequaled? I know right now there are millions of fans. Yeah, I'm getting choked up myself. There are millions of fans who are just devastated and crying. What a giant. He'd have loved us doing this because he sent me a lovely text. I just remembered it last night. He said, "Hi, Pia. This is last year. I just want you to know I think your show is the best show ever. I'm addicted to watching. It's all I'm watching now. I love it. Keep up the good work. Much love and respect, Ozzy." And he used to do that every now and again. He'd send me notes about stuff he'd seen me do or whatever. He was a really good mate, and I don't claim to be one of his closest friends, but I was very close with Sharon, and I saw a lot of Ozzy, and he was such a sweet and natured guy and he didn't like to be too politically partisan. News of Ozzy's death spread quickly among fans and the media in the early morning hours UK time. Gene Simmons, a member of the band Kiss, said he heard the news from his children, and at first he thought it was a prank. He simply couldn't believe that such a larger-than-life figure had left the world so suddenly. The shock was even greater because just 2 weeks earlier, Ozzy had reunited with the other 3 original members of Black Sabbath for a farewell performance at Aston Villa Stadium in Birmingham. This show was part of a previously announced farewell program. It featured numerous guest artists, including Metallica and Guns N' Roses, and was widely regarded as a historic send-off. According to several sources, Ozzy appeared at the concert in frail health, seated on a black throne that was lifted onto the stage. Despite this, he was present and waved to the audience. Many media outlets called it an unforgettable farewell image and the final public moment of his legendary career. But the images that I got, and first of all I was devastated because let me just put it succinctly here. Before Ozzy there was no such thing as Ozzy. There never was an Ozzy before. There's not going to be another Ozzy later. His stagecraft, who he was and continues to be in the minds of the fans on stage, isn't something that you learn in school. He just was who he was, not taking any direction from anybody despite disco and, thrash and whatever else was going on. He was always Ozzy, and the love he had for the fans, he expressed it on stage. Yes, the Prince of Darkness, but who as the Prince of Darkness would say, "I love you," and throw kisses to the fans. I mean, it was really striking. And I do think that even though it's very sad that he's died, I do think it was quite wonderful that the last thing he did in public life was to go back to his hometown with his old band surrounded by mates, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and others, and to put on what was a terrific show. I saw some of the clips online. It was fantastic. And he was in this, he was in a wheelchair, but they put him in a big black throne and they rose him up. And for that night, Ozzy was king again, back in Birmingham with his mates, with all his family backstage. And I just think if he could have scripted actually the last we ever saw of him, it wouldn't get better than that. At the Aston Villa Stadium in Birmingham, his hometown Ozzy was brought on stage seated in a large black chair described as a black throne due to his deteriorating health, which no longer allowed him to walk on his own. Even in a wheelchair, the image of Ozzy being lifted before the roaring crowd became an unforgettable moment. That night, Ozzy was king. Again, a close friend remarked. According to those who knew him, if Ozzy could have written the script for his final public appearance that night, would have been the perfect ending. More than just a concert, the farewell show was a grand gathering of rock legends, including Metallica and Guns N' Roses artists who were directly influenced by both Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne himself. Their presence served not only as a powerful tribute, but also as a testament to Ozzy's far-reaching impact, one that transcended his own generation and echoed through those that followed. The image of Ozzy being lifted onto the stage, surrounded by lights, fans, and music has since been replayed across various media outlets as the ultimate symbol of farewell. It wasn't merely a performance. It was a farewell ceremony, a send-off marking the end of the career of one of the most pivotal figures in the history of rock music. The most famous, of course, being that the time he ate the bat on stage. Now, people probably don't know the half of this, but I think originally they thought it was a toy bat that had been thrown on stage, and he picked it up instinctively and took a big old munch. And at that point, he realized it was actually a real bat. And I once asked him, I said, "What was it like?" And he went, "Well, I'll tell you one thing." He said, "Bats taste awful." Oh my God. But let's take a look at a clip of him talking about the bat. Let's watch. Over more than 5 decades in the music industry, Ozzy Osbourne was known not only as the iconic voice of heavy metal, but also for his series of shocking and bizarre antics acts that became inseparable from his public persona in popular culture. One of the most infamous incidents often brought up is the time he bit the head off a live bat on stage. According to a fellow musician, the shocking moment happened in the early 1980s. During a performance, a bat, initially believed to be a rubber toy, was thrown onto the stage by a fan. Without checking, Ozzy picked it up and bit into its head. It was only at that moment he realized it was a real bat, the witness recounted. Later, I asked him what the bat tasted like. He just said absolutely terrible. In another interview, Ozzy described the taste as very salty and even joked that he couldn't say exactly what it tasted like on live television due to censorship rules. The incident quickly became one of the most legendary anecdotes in rock history, not just for its absurdity, but because Ozzy embraced it as part of his public legacy. The bat story was repeatedly retold on talk shows, in music documentaries, and even in advertising campaigns Ozzy later appeared in. However, the eccentric behavior didn't stop at the stage. We came to America and we thought like drugs and all that was just a part of the gig. You know, you just get stoned and you just get up and that make you gig and all that. And what happened with Black Sabbath? We all ended up junkies and alcoholics, and everything like the drummer ended up in a rehabilitation center. I did for a while, and then in the end, disaster happens. It's inevitable to happen disaster cause it's like drugs. They were okay at the time, but we outgrew them. We took LSD. We took cocaine, and we took vast amounts of marijuana. It was fun at the time, but then we all just sort of thought this very good idea anymore. For many years, Ozzy and the members of Black Sabbath went through a period deeply entrenched in substance abuse, a reality that Ozzy himself openly acknowledged in later interviews. When we came to America, we thought drugs and all that stuff were just part of the job. Ozzy said in a recorded segment, "We'd get high and then go perform. The result was that we all became addicts and alcoholics." According to him, every member of the band went through addiction treatment at some point. The drummer had to check into a rehab center, and Ozzy himself was admitted to a rehabilitation facility. We used LSD, cocaine, a lot of weed. At first it was fun, but eventually we had to ask ourselves, was this a terrible idea? The stories of self-destructive behavior and Ozzy's wild lifestyle have often sparked divided opinions among the public. However, many experts believe that it was precisely the combination of his reckless persona, rebellious behavior, and unique stage presence that helped create the enduring allure of Ozzy Osbourne. To many fans, that madness wasn't random. It was part of the legend, a symbol of an era when rock had no limits. I want to put one thing straight. It's been put in the papers that they discovered I had Parkinson's when I had the fall. Well, I've known about the Parkinson's since 2003. I've had it all my life. And the Parkinson's I have, it's not like the Michael J. Fox one. Why does it cause that? It's called Parkin2. It's a gene that Ozzy was born with. And of course, Ozzy couldn't get anything normal. It's very rare. He did the final Black Sabbath show. This is it. For all 4 original guys. He died 2 weeks later. MHM. That's insane. Man, that's insane. Weren't they supposed to do one more show? It was like one last Ozfest. I don't know. I think people just decide it's enough. And that he was struggling for a long time. So if you get a debilitating disease like Parkinson's and just slowly robs you of your ability to move and your wit and everything just slowly takes it all away from you. As we said earlier, happened. He was diagnosed. We didn't know. And in 2003 with this Parkinson's, which was probably our creator, the inability to people were making fun of his speaking voice, and he never really addressed that. He was hard to understand. People were doing impressions, which weren't always really nice, but he could still get up on that stage and belt out a song like nobody else can. And he just was this quiet. He wasn't quiet, but he was quiet about his own personal demons and things like that. He didn't suffer. He just lived. If this is the hand that I'm dealt, I think he has been suffering for years now with health issues and the inability to do what he loves to do. And my heart was filled a week or two ago in watching what we all love. People talk about like after we die, are there people come and they do eulogies and they have an outpouring of in a 2020 interview on Good Morning Britain. Ozzy Osbourne publicly confirmed for the first time that he had been living with Parkinson's disease since 2003, a fact that had not been widely disclosed before. Specifically, he revealed that he had a rare genetic form of the disease called Parkin2, a mutation he had been born with. I want to set the record straight, Ozzy said during the interview. The press claimed I was diagnosed with Parkinson's after a fall. The truth is, I've known I had it since 2003. I've lived with it my whole life. According to neurologists, Parkin2 is an early-onset form of Parkinson's often linked to genetic factors and accounts for only a small percentage of all diagnosed cases. Remarkably, for nearly 2 decades after his diagnosis, Ozzy continued to perform, tour, and record music despite increasingly visible symptoms such as hand tremors, slowed speech, and impaired mobility. His health had long been a subject of public and media speculation, particularly due to his increasingly difficult-to-understand speech. Several entertainment programs even imitated his voice for comedic effect. However, those close to him say Ozzy rarely spoke about his illness and never publicly responded to such mockery. He never complained. He never hid. He just kept going, noted one talk show host who had interviewed him. He still got on stage, still sang, still connected with thousands of fans as if nothing could stop him. Ozzy's decision to keep his Parkinson's diagnosis private for nearly 17 years stirred a variety of responses in the artistic community. Some saw it as a brave act to protect his personal image and continue giving everything he had to music. Others felt it reflected his introverted nature and his desire not to burden those around him. But he loved toys. He loved playing. He loved doodling. He loved singing. He loved meeting people. He was turned on by the hymns. He went to an all-boys school or something. She was explaining to me on Hey. In the final years of his life, despite serious health deterioration due to Parkinson's disease and aging, Ozzy Osbourne maintained a pure passion for music, one that had been with him since his youth. According to those close to him, Ozzy's love for music began when he was a student at an all-boys Catholic school in England. It was there that he was first exposed to hymns, a genre seemingly worlds apart from the heavy metal sound he would later embrace. Ozzy loved those songs. He enjoyed singing along, and that's where he first found joy in music, a friend recalled. Beyond music, he also had a fondness for simple things, toys, drawing, chatting with people. These seemingly childlike hobbies remained with him throughout his life despite the physical challenges he faced over the years. His perseverance was most evident during his final performance in Birmingham, where he was brought on stage in a large black chair because he could no longer walk. The chair, described as a black throne, was lifted under the stage lights amid the cheers of tens of thousands of fans. With the help of backstage staff and medical support equipment, Ozzy was still able to appear and greet the public even though he could no longer sing in full as he once did. For those present, it was a powerful moment. He was brought up on a big black chair, and that night Ozzy was king again. One participant said his entire family, his wife and children, were backstage. The entire event was organized like a ceremonial tribute featuring appearances by many major artists in the industry. Ozzy's presence on stage, despite his frail condition, reflected his personal determination to connect with his fans one final time and reaffirm his enduring love for music. For many in the audience, it wasn't just a concert. It was a symbolic farewell marking the close of a musical journey that had lasted over 50 years, Lost the man who, with his buddies, invented the whole genre of music that so many of us hold dear and play and try to expand upon. But without Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, hard to imagine any of this exists. So I just wanted to tell a quick story. You know, in 2017, I got asked by Metal Hammer to go interview Ozzy Osbourne on what was to be Black Sabbath's final tour. And of course, at first I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it'd be great. We were ending a tour in Europe and was going to fly out to Scotland to meet an idol. But as the date got closer, got more and more nervous. I started thinking about, all the questions that Ozzy has been asked in his life, and how was I supposed to come up with anything that wasn't completely generic or he hadn't been asked a million times. So, I reached out to a lot of friends and a lot of people and got this set of questions together and ended up going backstage to meet Ozzy, super nervous, and he just had one of those personalities where you were just completely put at ease. It was so easy to talk to him. He was so energetic and excited, but also engaging. And I'll never forget that experience. That experience was insane. I remember John, who was taking the photos years later, gave me basically the whole roll of photos, and I have those in my wardrobe case that I take on tour. So I see these photos every day. They're just sitting in there, and just an incredible memory. They say never meet your idols, but that's just not true. Sometimes you get lucky. And Ozzy, besides the music, just was so kind. And just seemed like such a welcoming person. And there's a million stories of first time I heard Sabbath, first time I heard Ozzy, all these things, but that just sticks out to me personally as just a statement of his character. So, rest in peace. I was so fortunate to be able to see, Ozzy's last performance. It was to be there to witness it. I was so blessed I was able to go and see his last performance. This guy's voice, the godfather of metal, hard rock, has inspired so many incredible artists. To see some of my favorite artists attend his last show just says so much. He lived it. Who's the leader back in Birmingham where it all began for him? The poignancy of Ozzy dying just 2 weeks later was very striking. I thought, what were your thoughts when you heard? First of all, I appreciate you reaching out, and the BBC reached out. I had no plans of commenting or except on Twitter to send my prayers and condolences to Sharon and the family. But news of Ozzy Osbourne's passing began circulating early in the morning local time, just 2 weeks after his extraordinary farewell performance in Birmingham, an event widely regarded as his final public appearance. Initial reports were published by several British outlets and were later confirmed by close family members and official representatives of the Osbourne household. Once the news was verified, major media organizations such as BBC, The Guardian, CNN, and Rolling Stone issued urgent updates and dedicated tribute articles. The fact that Ozzy died just 14 days after this symbolic hometown concert was quickly described by the press as hauntingly cinematic. The farewell performance, heavily promoted as his last goodbye to the stage, took place during a period filled with career milestones in Birmingham, the very city where Black Sabbath made their debut in the late 1960s. 2 weeks later, the world received the devastating news that the Prince of Darkness had taken his final breath. What made the moment even more shocking was the complete absence of any public warning signs in the 2 weeks between the show and his death. Neither his family nor close sources gave any indication that Ozzy's condition had turned critical. As a result, many fans and fellow musicians were left stunned by the realization that the farewell concert at Aston Villa Stadium wasn't just his last performance. It was his true final goodbye. According to close sources, Ozzy had long been battling a series of health issues, most notably a rare genetic form of Parkinson's disease, Parkin2, along with complications involving his spine and motor functions. Yet despite these struggles, he chose to make one last appearance on stage, lifted onto the platform in a large black chair, a visual many described as Ozzy's throne. For many artists, peers, and fans, the timing of it all felt more than coincidental. It felt like fate. It was quite a poignant interview actually, because for all the kind of naughty behavior underpinning it, Ozzy couldn't live without Sharon and Sharon couldn't live without Ozzy. And that's what's so sad I think about today is that Sharon now doesn't have him. And my heart genuinely breaks for her for that. And the kids, yeah, their father is gone. Yeah, you know, the patriarch. I mean, it's just over more than 4 decades. The relationship between Ozzy Osbourne and his wife Sharon Osbourne has been regarded as one of the most enduring and unique bonds in global entertainment. Sharon was not only his life partner, but also his manager, representative protector, and the driving force behind every step of his career since the 1980s. After he left Black Sabbath, the two first met when Sharon worked for her father, Don Arden's management company, the same company that once managed Black Sabbath. She later made the bold decision to leave her father's firm and become Ozzy's personal manager, a risky but pivotal move for both of them. The combination of Ozzy's artistic talent and Sharon's business acumen helped rebuild his solo career, most notably with the 1980 album Blizzard of Ounce. Their marriage was not without turbulence. During the 1980s and 1990s, they faced crises involving substance abuse, mental health issues, and public scandals. But unlike many celebrity couples who fell apart under similar pressures, they chose to walk the path of recovery together. Sharon was the one who insisted Ozzy go to rehab multiple times, and she personally oversaw every major tour, both domestic and international. Sharon's role wasn't confined to behind the scenes. In the 2000s, she became a familiar face on television alongside Ozzy and their children in The Osbournes, the MTV reality show that gave audiences a closer look at their chaotic yet loving household. It highlighted Ozzy not just as a rock icon, but as a quirky, devoted husband and father. Their children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack, each played roles in maintaining the Osbournes' public image. Kelly became a singer and TV host. Jack pursued a career in reality television and media production, while Amy opted for a private musical path, staying out of the spotlight. All three frequently appeared alongside Ozzy in public events, tours, and family projects, cementing the Osbourne as a multi-talented family brand. From a media perspective, the Osbourne became a household name. Their familial bond, though often chaotic, was never broken. Sharon was often described in the press as the rock of the family, holding it all together through Ozzy's battles with Parkinson's disease and numerous other health issues. When Ozzy passed away, friends and fellow artists emphasized how inseparable he was from Sharon. Ozzy couldn't live without Sharon, and Sharon couldn't live without Ozzy. They were one. Family friends said. His death didn't just leave a void in the music world. It shattered the heart of a family built on love and resilience. Even Ozzy's grandchildren had begun forming their first memories of him through screens. In one touching clip that went viral, Jack Osbourne's young child is seen pointing at a TV screen, mesmerized by a video of Ozzy. The child is too young to understand that their grandfather is gone. Someone close to the family commented, "It was a powerful reminder that while Ozzy may no longer be here physically, his image and legacy would live on through the generations." In his final days, Sharon stayed faithfully by Ozzy's side, caring for him, easing his pain, and encouraging him to keep fighting. As his health declined from Parkinson's and other complications, Sharon remained present every day, helping him feel comforted and loved. She witnessed his most agonizing moments when medication was the only relief from his suffering. Kelly and Jack were also constantly by his side, offering love and strength. The closeness of family became Ozzy's greatest source of peace. Despite the physical decline, it was this love that helped him endure with courage until the very end. Beyond family, old friends like Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, former Black Sabbath bandmates, shared deeply moving stories about their final moments with Ozzy. They reminisced about the trials they faced together in their music careers, the joy and sorrow they shared as lifelong companions. Even in his frailty, they saw in Ozzy the spirit of a warrior who never gave up. These accounts offered the world a window into Ozzy's final chapter, one filled with pain, yes, but also with profound love. Ozzy Osbourne may be gone, but the screams, the microphone, and the rebellious spirit he embodied will live forever. He was more than a rock legend. He was an icon of a generation never to be replicated. Thank you for everything, Ozzy. Music will never forget you. If you've ever listened to Ozzy, if his music was part of your life, share your favorite memory in the comments. Hit subscribe and let's keep Ozzy's legacy echoing loud into the future.